How did you get started with creating the 12 levels of being?
Okay, well, it's a wonderful story. In a way, I came to the 12 levels of being in spite of myself. And I think many people will know that they fell upon something that was transformational, not because they were looking for it, but because it was kind of like a log in the road and they fell on their face. So
Mm-hmm.
that's what happened to me. I was told many years ago, actually in the year 2000, that there was a woman that channeled a being, and the woman's name was Helen Barton, and she was a trans medium. And I kind of shrugged and said, okay, so what? Because I'd
Mm-hmm.
always been in touch with spirit beings since I was a little girl, and I'd had quite a challenging childhood with a mother that really didn't know how to deal with an outspoken, slightly wild, definitely precocious little girl. So my life was not that easy. So I used to hide in the back garden, and a being came to me, this beautiful golden woman that I took as, you know, as natural as meeting somebody, at the shops. And we started to talk for years and years. She would always meet me under the hydrangea bush, and we would talk every time I was either hit or humiliated or told something about myself that was hurtful. So for me to go and speak to a trans medium that can channel a spirit was something that I wasn't that interested in.
I would imagine not.
No, but
Not when you had your own.
exactly. But my friend told me about this being called John the Beloved, and she told me over and over again. She used a quality that I call ruthless compassion.
Mm-hmm.
Ruthless compassion is she just didn't stop telling me, but she didn't argue with me either. Oh, are you going to give this guy a call? No, I'm not. And then a week
Mm-hmm.
later, have you called her? No. Listen, what part of no don't you understand? Hey, it's okay. Let's go have coffee. So she just went on and on and on.
Okay.
So eventually I caved in, and against my better judgment, I went and I had a session. And as soon as Helen went into a trance, a completely different voice emerged from her. The energy of the room totally changed, and I felt my arms, my legs covered in goosebumps. I felt my heart pounding, and I realized something profound was happening in this room. And John the Beloved spoke with this deep voice, and he has this unique accent, which I can't pinpoint. It's not an accent from a country I've ever heard of.
Mm-hmm.
And his sentence structure doesn't have the same usual syntax. For example, sometimes I'll ask him a question, and his reply might be like, oh, that is a different kettle of the fish, which, I always laugh at that because you say it in a different way. But his voice is overlaid with a lightness of energy, and he is incredibly funny. He has such a good sense of humor. And he taught me over many, many years that to be truly spiritual, you have to laugh. And there's a whole story in that about laughing. But just to answer your question, for me to believe in the spirit world was absolutely fine. And to have inner conversations with guides and angels, that's fine too. But to actually hear the voice of a being who knows me intimately is something else. And he knew everything about my childhood. He knew how I'd been searching for my truth. And he shared with me my guides who I already knew. I knew the names of my 3 guides. I knew that I was also deeply connected to Kuan Yin. And in a secret kind of way, I often prayed to the Archangel Raphael. So when I said to John the Beloved, I just want to check who are my guides, and he told me, and I said to him, and Kuan Yin is important. He said, yes, but there is another even more important for you. And he said, and that is Raphael. And I knew that I hadn't told anybody that. And Raphael in Hebrew comes from the word refuach, meaning healing. And John the Beloved said that I'm a teacher of healers, which felt far too big for me to handle at the time. And then he told me something else that really floored me and actually made me at that moment decide I never want to speak to him again.
What was that?
He told me that I was not fulfilling my purpose. I was a teacher of healers, and I went into, yes, what do you mean? I'm teaching people Reiki, I'm teaching people Gestalt therapy, I'm teaching healers. And he said, no, you're teaching healer dabblers. And what you're doing actually is you're playing it safe. And I was just stunned. I mean, playing it safe. Am I playing it safe? Anyway, that was the end of that first conversation, and I remember walking out into the sun and deciding that was a very bad idea. I should have listened to myself in the first place. I'm never going to speak to this person again, or this spirit. And I just went on with my day, and it gnawed away and gnawed away and gnawed away at me. And 2 months later, I contacted Helen, and I said, I just need to have another session. Probably to tell John, you don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, yeah.
And in that session, he started to share with me that I was to bring a piece of knowledge back into the world that had been known, had been lived by, but it had also been forgotten. And he didn't tell me how many, he didn't tell me what it was, but he told me that it would transform millions of lives. And I know that I can only do so much. So part of my teaching of the 12 levels of being is to eventually teach people to teach in their own way, using their own perspective, because I'm always the Gestalt therapist in the background, how their way to teach the 12 levels of being.